Have you ever wondered what truly lies beyond the veil? We are often told stories of heaven's eternal light and hell's unending darkness. But what about the space in between? A place shrouded in fire and mercy, a concept that is often mentioned in passing, but rarely understood in its terrifying and beautiful depth. This is not a theological debate. This is not a lesson from a book. Tonight, we journey into a mystery that has haunted the faithful for centuries. We are going to explore Purgatory, but not the version you might have heard about in a sermon. We are going to see it through the eyes of those who were actually taken there. Saints, mystics, and visionaries have been granted glimpses into this realm. They returned with stories so vivid, so raw, and so profoundly different from our common understanding that they were often kept as closely guarded secrets. They saw the truth about this place of waiting, a truth that is both cruel and filled with an almost unbearable hope. And in the next few minutes, I will share with you the first and most shocking revelation from one of the greatest mystics of the 20th century, Saint Faustina Kowalska. She was given a guided tour of this spiritual furnace, and what her guardian angel showed her changes everything we think we know about the final judgment and the soul's journey home. This is the truth that nobody tells you. Before we follow Saint Faustina into the shadows, we must understand that these visions were not dreams or figments of imagination. For the Church, they are considered private revelations, divine gifts given to specific individuals for the good of all. They are windows opened for a moment by God's hand, allowing us to see what our mortal eyes cannot. Saint Faustina, known to the world as the Apostle of Divine Mercy, was a simple, uneducated Polish nun. Yet Jesus himself chose her to be his secretary, tasking her with writing down everything he revealed to her in a diary. This diary has become one of the most important mystical documents in modern history, a roadmap of God's infinite mercy. But mercy, she learned, is not a simple pardon. It is a transformative fire. One night, her prayers were interrupted. Her guardian angel stood before her, his presence both comforting and solemn. He told her, "Follow me." He was to show her a place she had only heard of, a place souls go to be made perfect before they can endure the pure light of God's presence. In an instant, she was transported. She described it in her diary not as a physical journey, but an immediate spiritual arrival. She found herself in a place that was vast and misty, choked with a strange kind of smoke. And within this fog, she saw fire. But it wasn't a fire like we know on earth. It was a spiritual fire, a fire that burns not the body, but the soul itself. And in this place, she saw a great multitude of suffering souls. They were not screaming in the way the damned in hell scream, a sound of pure despair and hatred. Their cries were different. It was a sound of profound and agonizing longing, the sound of a heart breaking for something it desperately loves but cannot yet have. These souls were not God's enemies. They were his beloved children, waiting to come home. As she walked through this valley of shadows, guided by her angel, she was overwhelmed by the intensity of their suffering. She saw figures, recognizable as souls, immersed in this purifying pain. The air was thick with their prayers, not prayers for escape, but prayers of penance, of acceptance, of a deep, sorrowful love. They knew they were being saved, but the process was an agony beyond mortal comprehension. Driven by a deep compassion that was the hallmark of her soul, Saint Faustina did something remarkable. She spoke to them. She asked the suffering souls a question that cuts to the very heart of this mystery, a question that would unlock the cruel truth of purgatory. She asked, "What is your greatest torment?" She might have expected them to say the fire, the darkness, or the memory of their past sins. But their answer, spoken as if with a single voice, was something else entirely. It was a truth so profound it has echoed through the Church ever since she wrote it down. It is the first secret that is so often overlooked. They all answered her in unison. Our greatest torment is our longing for God. Let that sink in for a moment. Not fire, not punishment. The most intense suffering in purgatory is the soul's unbearable thirst for the God it now sees and understands, in a way it never could on earth. It is the pain of being so close to perfect love, beauty, and truth, yet being held back by one's own imperfections. It is the agony of a bride who sees her beloved waiting but cannot yet run into his arms because her wedding dress is stained. This is the cruel genius of purgatory. The suffering is not inflicted by a wrathful judge. It is born from love itself. The soul, having seen God, understands what it has lost, what it has given up through its sins and attachments on earth. And the pain of that separation, the burning desire to be united with its Creator, becomes its purification. The fire is love, and the pain is longing. But if this intense longing for God is their greatest suffering, what are the other pains they endure? And how, according to Saint Faustina's vision, can we on earth actually reach into this misty realm and provide them relief? The answer she was given is a powerful call to action for every single one of us, and it reveals a hidden spiritual economy that connects our world directly with the next. We will explore that right after this. So, while the soul's yearning for God is the central flame of its suffering, it is not the only one. Saint Faustina saw that this primary agony gives birth to others. Imagine seeing for the first time the complete and unfiltered truth of your life. Every selfish act, every harsh word, every moment of pride or indifference, played back not as a memory, but as a living reality. The soul in purgatory is shown the full impact of its sins. It sees the ripples of pain it caused, the good it failed to do, the love it rejected. It doesn't see this from God's perspective as a condemnation, but from its own, now enlightened perspective, as a source of profound shame and regret. It is a fire of self-knowledge, a burning away of every illusion and self-deception we cling to on earth. This is the divine justice that Saint Faustina witnessed. It is not punitive, but restorative. Each soul suffers in a way that corresponds to its earthly attachments. A soul attached to pride suffers a deep humiliation. A soul attached to worldly goods feels an aching emptiness. It is a perfect, tailor-made purification, designed to heal the specific wounds the soul inflicted upon itself. It is the only way for the soul to become whole again, to become capable of receiving the totality of God's love. But here, in this place of suffering, is where the most incredible secret is revealed. It is the secret of our power. Saint Faustina, overwhelmed with compassion, asked Jesus what she could do for these souls. His answer forms a bridge between our world and theirs, a bridge built of mercy. Jesus told her that we, the faithful on earth, hold the keys to their relief. He told her, all these souls are greatly loved by me. They are making retribution to my justice. It is in your power to bring them relief. Think about the weight of those words. It is in our power. We are not helpless spectators in this cosmic drama. We are active participants. The souls in purgatory, as she was told, cannot help themselves. Their time for earning merit is over. They are completely dependent on us. How do we help them? Jesus was very specific with Saint Faustina. He gave her 3 primary tools: prayer, sacrifice, and acts of mercy. He encouraged her to offer prayers, especially the Holy Mass, for the souls suffering there.
The Mass, being the perfect sacrifice of Christ, has infinite power to satisfy the demands of justice and bring cooling relief to these burning souls. He also spoke of the power of our own sufferings. Every frustration, every illness, every small sacrifice we make during our day can be offered up for them. Instead of wasting our pain in complaint, we can turn it into spiritual gold. We can direct its value, through prayer, to the treasury of the Church, a spiritual reservoir of grace from which the souls in purgatory can draw relief. This is the communion of saints in action. We are all connected, a single family in Christ, and the strong can and should help the weak. This creates a beautiful and often forgotten spiritual economy. Nothing is wasted in God's plan. Our love, expressed through these small acts, can literally cross the veil of death and shorten the time of purification for those we love, and even for those we never knew. It is a profound act of charity, perhaps the greatest one, as these souls will one day be in heaven, and their gratitude will be eternal. They will become powerful intercessors for us when our own time comes. Saint Faustina took this mission to heart. She dedicated much of her prayer and suffering to the souls in purgatory, and she often felt their gratitude in return. Her vision confirms that purgatory is not a final destination, but a doorway. A painful, fiery doorway, but one that leads directly into the arms of God. Her revelation gives us not only a chilling look at the consequences of sin, but also a beautiful and empowering mission. But Faustina's vision, as profound as it is, shows a general view of purgatory. Other saints were given more specific and, in some ways, more terrifying glimpses. They were shown that not all souls suffer in the same way or in the same place. One saint was taken to a specific region of purgatory, a place of icy cold and profound darkness reserved for a particular type of sin, a sin that is tragically common in our modern world. What is this sin, and what is this unique torment that awaits those who fall into it? The answer is a chilling warning we all need to hear. While Saint Faustina was shown the emotional heart of purgatory, the burning fire of longing for God, other saints were given visions that revealed its terrifying diversity. They saw that purgatory is not a single uniform state, but a realm with different levels and types of purification, each perfectly suited to the sins that needed to be cleansed. And one of the most chilling of these visions was granted to Saint Lidwina of Schiedam, a Dutch mystic from the 14th century. Lidwina's life was one of almost unimaginable suffering. After a skating accident as a teenager, she was left paralyzed and bedridden for the rest of her life, afflicted with horrific illnesses. But she turned her bed into an altar, offering her every pain to God for the conversion of sinners and the relief of the souls in purgatory. It was because of this profound spiritual connection to suffering that she was granted extraordinary access to the afterlife. Her guardian angel would frequently take her spirit from her broken body to visit heaven, hell, and the many regions of purgatory. On one such journey, he led her away from the familiar plains of fire. They descended into a place that was the complete opposite. It was a place of profound, bone-chilling cold. She saw a vast, desolate landscape shrouded in a darkness so thick it seemed to swallow all light. Instead of flames, there were glaciers of ice and fields of frozen mud. And trapped within this ice, or wandering aimlessly in the biting eternal winter, were countless souls. They were not crying out with fiery longing, they were shivering, isolated, and filled with a sense of utter desolation.
Their torment was not a burning passion for God, but the agonizing emptiness of His absence, an experience of absolute spiritual coldness. It was the pain of being utterly alone in the dark. Bewildered, Lidwina asked her angel who these souls were. Why was their purification so different from the others? The angel's answer is a stark warning for our modern age, an age so often marked by apathy and indifference. He told her this was the purgatory for the lukewarm. These were the souls who, on earth, were neither hot nor cold in their faith.
They didn't commit terrible, malicious sins that would lead them to hell, but they also didn't live with any real love or zeal for God. Their faith was a matter of habit, not heart. They went to church, but their minds were elsewhere. They said their prayers, but the words were empty. They saw the needs of their neighbor, but felt no urgency to help. Their hearts were cold. Their life was a spiritual gray area, a comfortable neutrality. They avoided great evil, but also great good. And so, in the perfect and restorative justice of God, their purification mirrors their earthly life. Because they chose spiritual coldness on earth, they must now endure its ultimate reality. They must experience the full, painful consequences of a heart that refused to burn with love for its Creator. The torment of this icy darkness is to finally understand what they missed. They are frozen with the regret of a life lived at a distance from God. They now crave the warmth of His love more than anything, but are trapped in the very coldness they cultivated. It is a terrible, isolating agony, a purification designed to slowly, painfully thaw their hearts until they are capable of feeling the fire of divine love once more. Think about how this applies to us. How often are we lukewarm? How often do we treat our relationship with God as just another item on our to-do list? This vision is not just a strange story from the Middle Ages, it is a spiritual mirror. It forces us to ask ourselves, is there a fire in my heart for God, or is there just a faint, dying ember in danger of being extinguished by the coldness of the world? The good news is that even these frozen souls are not beyond our reach. Saint Lidwina was told that the fervent, heartfelt prayers of the faithful on earth act like rays of sun in this desolate land. Our love, offered in the Mass or in a simple, sincere prayer, can bring a moment of warmth to a shivering soul, melting the ice of their regret and bringing them one step closer to the eternal light. We have the power to bring summer to their winter. We have now seen a purgatory of fire, born of longing, and a purgatory of ice, born of indifference. These visions show us the consequences of our actions and our inactions. But in this place of fire and ice, of longing and regret, there is a visitor, a figure of pure light and maternal love, who descends into the depths to bring comfort and release. She is known as the Star of the Sea, the comforter of the afflicted. What is the Blessed Mother's special role in purgatory, and how does her presence change everything for these suffering souls? The answer, revealed by yet another saint, is a testament to the power of a mother's love that even death cannot sever. In the midst of the purifying flames and the desolate ice, in the heart of this realm of suffering and hope, there is a recurring presence. Across numerous mystical revelations, from Saint Faustina to Saint Lidwina and many others, a figure of maternal tenderness is seen descending into purgatory. This is the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, and her role in this process of purification is one of the most beautiful and consoling truths of the Catholic faith. Many saints, including Saint Bridget of Sweden and Saint Alphonsus Liguori, have written extensively about Mary's special ministry to the souls in purgatory.
They describe her not as a passive observer, but as an active Queen of Mercy, visiting her suffering children, bringing them solace, and accelerating their journey to heaven. She is the oasis in their desert of pain, the gentle breeze in their purifying fire. Saint Alphonsus, a doctor of the Church, taught that Mary's presence brings a temporary relief from the worst torments. When she appears, the darkness recedes and the intensity of the suffering lessens. Her very gaze is a balm to these souls, a reminder of the love that awaits them, and a confirmation that they have not been forgotten. It is a moment of profound spiritual refreshment, a drink of cool water for a soul consumed by thirst. But her role goes far beyond simple comfort. The saints tell us that Mary has a special power to release souls from purgatory, particularly on the feast days dedicated to her.
It's a long-held pious tradition, supported by these private revelations, that on feasts like the Assumption, August 15th, or her Nativity, September 8th, heaven opens its gates wider, and Mary herself leads great processions of purified souls from purgatory into the glory of paradise. Imagine the scene. A soul has been suffering, perhaps for what feels like an eternity, paying the debt of its sins, its heart aching with longing for God. Then, on a day the Church on earth celebrates the glory of the Queen of Heaven, she herself appears in their midst. She calls them by name, tells them their time of trial is over, and personally escorts them into the presence of her Son. This is the ultimate act of a loving mother who never abandons her children, not even after death. Why does she have this special role? The theologians explain it through her unique relationship with Christ. She is the mediatrix of all graces. All the graces that flow from the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross are distributed, in a sense, through her hands. Because she is the mother of the judge, she is also the mother of the judged. She intercedes for them with a mother's authority and a mother's love, presenting her Son with the prayers and sacrifices offered by the faithful on earth for these specific souls. This is why devotion to Mary is considered one of the most powerful ways to help the souls in purgatory, and also one of the surest signs of one's own predestination. The saints consistently taught that a true child of Mary will not be lost. Praying the rosary for the souls in purgatory is considered an act of immense spiritual power. Each Hail Mary is like a drop of cooling dew upon their flames, a petition from their own mother to her Son on their behalf. This understanding of Mary's role transforms our view of purgatory. It ceases to be just a place of divine justice and becomes a school of love, presided over by the most loving of mothers. It assures us that no soul is left to suffer alone. They are in the care of a queen who actively seeks their liberation and who constantly presents their needs before the throne of God. It also gives us a clear and powerful tool. If you have a loved one who has passed away, entrusting them to the maternal care of Mary is the most effective thing you can do. Ask her to visit them, to comfort them, to apply the merits of her Son to their soul, and to bring them home to heaven as quickly as possible. This is not just a pious thought, it is a spiritual reality attested to by centuries of saints and mystics. We've seen the fire of longing, the ice of indifference, and the comforting presence of the Queen of Heaven. But what about us? What are the specific signs that a soul in purgatory might be trying to communicate with us, asking for our help? Is it possible for them to reach across the veil? The stories of saints like Padre Pio reveal that it is not only possible, but it happens more often than we think.
What are these signs, and how can we recognize a plea for prayer from the other side? The answer might change the way you think about unexplained events in your own life. The connection between our world and purgatory is not a one-way street. While we can send our prayers and sacrifices to aid the suffering souls, the saints and mystics tell us that, on rare occasions and only by God's special permission, those souls can reach back to us. They are not ghosts haunting the living out of malice, but petitioners, allowed to manifest in some way to ask for the one thing they desperately need: our prayers. One of the most famous and well-documented sources for these accounts comes from the life of Saint Padre Pio of Pietrelcina. This 20th century priest, who bore the stigmata of Christ, lived in a constant, open communion with the supernatural world. For him, the veil between earth and the afterlife was exceptionally thin. Souls from purgatory were, as he once matter-of-factly stated, more numerous than the living who climbed the road to his monastery. His fellow friars would often hear him talking aloud in his empty room at night. When asked who he was speaking to, he would calmly reply that he was praying with souls from purgatory who had come to him seeking relief. They came to him because his life of intense prayer and suffering made him a spiritual powerhouse, a beacon of hope they could see from their world of shadows.
One evening, Padre Pio was sitting by the fireplace in the monastery when an old man, dressed in a shabby cloak, sat down beside him. Padre Pio was surprised, as the monastery was closed and locked for the night. He asked the man who he was and how he had gotten in. The old man replied that he was a soul from Purgatory. He explained that he had been a monk in that very monastery centuries ago, but had failed in his duties, being lazy in his prayers. Now he was finishing his purification and needed one holy mass to be said for him so he could finally enter heaven. Padre Pio, ever obedient, promised he would say Mass for him the next morning. The old man stood up to leave, and as he walked towards the door, he passed right through it. Padre Pio was shaken, admitting later that he felt a great fear. He realized he had been speaking with a soul from beyond the grave. The next morning, he celebrated the Mass for the monk's soul as promised. Later, he told his spiritual director that the monk had appeared to him again, radiant and joyful, to thank him on his way to paradise. This story reveals the most common reason for such a manifestation, a direct request for a Mass. The Holy Mass is the most powerful prayer we can offer for the dead, and a soul in great need may be permitted by God to make this known. Other stories from the lives of the saints tell of similar phenomena. Saint John Vianney, the curé of Ars, also reported frequent visits from souls asking for his prayers and penances. So what are the signs we might look for? According to these mystical traditions, they are often subtle and not necessarily frightening. It might be a sudden, intense, and inexplicable urge to pray for a specific person who has passed away, even someone you haven't thought of in years. This is often interpreted as a nudge from that soul, a spiritual tap on the shoulder. It could also manifest as a recurring dream, not a normal chaotic dream, but one that is unusually vivid, peaceful, and focused, where a deceased relative or friend appears, not necessarily speaking, but conveying a sense of sadness, longing, or incompletion. They are not there to scare you, but to ask for your remembrance. In some rare cases, there might be unexplained physical phenomena, but always with a purpose. A book of prayers falling off a shelf, a distinct scent associated with the person suddenly filling a room, or a feeling of a presence in a moment of quiet prayer.
The key is that these events are not chaotic or terrifying like a haunting. They are gentle, specific, and often lead the person experiencing them to think of the deceased and, consequently, to pray for them. The crucial thing is to respond with charity, not fear. If you experience something you believe might be a plea for help, the answer is simple: pray. Have a Mass offered for that person's soul. Pray a rosary for them. Offer a small sacrifice or act of charity in their name. You have nothing to lose, and that soul has everything to gain. Whether it was a genuine communication or simply your own mind prompting you to an act of charity, the prayer is never wasted. These accounts teach us to be spiritually sensitive, to listen with the ear of our heart. The communion of saints is real and active. Our deceased loved ones are not gone forever. They are on a journey, and we are their most important allies. But helping them is not just about relieving their suffering. It has a profound and direct impact on our own spiritual lives. What happens to us when we dedicate ourselves to praying for the holy souls? The saints reveal a secret spiritual benefit, a hidden grace that protects and guides us in ways we cannot imagine. Engaging in this profound act of charity, praying for the souls in purgatory, does more than just aid those who have gone before us. It initiates a powerful spiritual feedback loop, a reciprocal flow of grace that directly impacts our own lives here on earth. This isn't just a pious hope, it's a spiritual principle attested to by countless saints who made this devotion a cornerstone of their sanctity. When we work for their release, they in turn work for our salvation. Saint Catherine of Bologna, a 15th century mystic, was a fervent advocate for this practice. She taught that when we, through our prayers, release a soul from purgatory, we gain a new and powerful friend in heaven. That soul, now standing in the full glory of the beatific vision, is filled with an immense and eternal gratitude.
They see with perfect clarity how our small acts of love on earth were instrumental in bringing them to their eternal home. And what do they do with this gratitude? They become our personal intercessors before the throne of God. They pray for us, for our families, for our needs, and most importantly, for our final perseverance. Think of it as making a powerful investment in your own spiritual future. Every soul you help release becomes a dedicated advocate, pleading your case before God with a love and urgency born of personal experience. St. Alphonsus Liguori goes even further. He states that the souls in purgatory, though unable to merit anything for themselves, can still pray for their benefactors on earth. While they are in a state of suffering, God, in His mercy, allows their prayers for us to be heard. They are close to God, in a state of perfect love for Him, and their prayers are pure and selfless. They understand the dangers and temptations of this world far better now than they ever did while they were here, and they plead for our protection. So, when you pray for them, you are not just sending aid into the void. You are establishing a relationship. You are building a spiritual support system of holy souls who have a vested interest in seeing you safely home. This is the communion of saints in its most practical and beautiful form. It's a network of love and prayer that transcends the boundaries of life and death. There's another, more immediate benefit to this practice, one that affects our own soul's purification here and now. When we regularly meditate on the reality of purgatory, it changes our perspective on sin. It's no longer an abstract concept or a rule to be broken. We begin to see sin for what it truly is, a stain on the soul that must be cleansed either through penance in this life or through fire in the next.
This awareness cultivates a holy fear, not a servile, paralyzing fear of a vengeful God, but a filial fear, the fear of a loving child who dreads offending a beloved father. It motivates us to take our spiritual lives more seriously. We become quicker to go to confession, more diligent in our daily prayers, more willing to make small sacrifices. We start to do our purgatory here on earth, where our acts have merit, rather than waiting to do it there, where the suffering is passive and far more intense. Praying for the holy souls detaches us from the world. It reminds us daily that this life is a pilgrimage, not a final destination. Our true home is elsewhere. This perspective helps us to hold worldly things, possessions, ambitions, resentments, with a lighter grip. It purges us of our attachments before they become the very things that will hold us back and cause us pain in the next life. In essence, this devotion is a school of sanctity. It teaches us charity, humility, and the true value of a soul. It connects us to the Church triumphant in heaven and the Church suffering in purgatory, strengthening our place in the Church militant here on earth. It is a devotion that purifies the dead and sanctifies the living. We have now journeyed through the fire and ice of purgatory, witnessed the comfort of the Blessed Mother, and understood our profound connection to the suffering souls. We've seen it through the eyes of saints who were granted a glimpse of this mysterious reality. But what does it all mean for you, right now? How can we weave this profound truth into the fabric of our daily lives in a simple, practical way? The final secret is not a vision, but a practice, a simple set of actions that can transform our spiritual lives and make us powerful apostles for the holy souls. So we stand at the end of our journey, having peered through the keyhole of eternity, guided by the visions of Saint Faustina and others who walked the misty plains of purgatory. We have learned that its greatest pain is not fire, but a burning love, an agonizing longing for God. We have seen its desolate winters of ice, reserved for the lukewarm hearts who failed to ignite that love on earth. We have been comforted by the maternal presence of Mary, the Queen of Mercy, who descends to bring relief to her suffering children.
And we have discovered our own incredible power, the power to reach across the veil through our prayers, masses, and sacrifices, and the profound truth that in helping them, we sanctify ourselves. This is the cruel and beautiful truth that nobody tells you. Cruel because the suffering is real and intense, born from the perfect clarity of seeing our own unworthiness in the face of perfect love. Beautiful because it is not a place of retribution, but of restoration. It is the ultimate expression of divine mercy, a final, fiery act of love that refuses to let a soul enter heaven with any stain or shadow. It is God's workshop where He lovingly chisels away our imperfections until we perfectly reflect His image, ready to endure the full, unveiled blaze of His glory for all eternity. This knowledge should not fill us with fear, but with a profound sense of urgency and hope. Urgency to live our lives with more intention, to fight against lukewarmness, and to perform acts of penance and charity now. And hope because it confirms that God's mercy truly is endless. It follows us even beyond the grave, never giving up on us until we are made perfect. It reminds us that our connections of love are not severed by death, but are instead given a new supernatural dimension. We are still a family, bound together in the communion of saints, and we have a vital mission to fulfill for one another. The question is no longer what purgatory is, but what we are going to do about it. Turning signs into action, your practical guide. In the next 24 hours. 1. Immediate and specific prayer. Tonight, before sleeping, set aside 5 minutes of silence.
Instead of a generic prayer, choose one deceased person you knew and for whom you might not have prayed for a long time. It could be a grandparent, a childhood friend, an old neighbor. Say their name aloud and pray an Our Father and a Hail Mary with the intention focused solely on that person's soul. Imagine your prayer as a glass of fresh water being delivered to someone with immense thirst. Feel the intention of the act. 2. The sacrifice of silence. Choose a 30-minute period today when you would normally be consuming some kind of media, social media, music, a podcast. Instead, turn everything off. Offer this small sacrifice of silence and sensory stimulation for the most forgotten soul in purgatory, the one who has no one on earth praying for them. Unite your small emptiness with the great emptiness they feel from the absence of God. In the next 7 days. 1. The Mass of Mercy. This week, attend daily Mass if possible, or at least Sunday Mass, with a single and powerful intention: to offer the totality of Christ's sacrifice for the souls in purgatory. Upon arrival, make a silent prayer saying, "Eternal Father, I offer you the body and blood, soul and divinity of your most beloved Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, in atonement for our sins and for those of the souls in purgatory." Participate in Mass not as a spectator, but as an active intercessor, uniting your intentions with those of the priest at the altar. 2. The Eternal Gratitude Journal. Inspired by St. Faustina's diary, get a notebook. During this week, write down one thing each day for which you are grateful to someone who has passed away. I am grateful to my grandmother for teaching me how to cook, or I am grateful to my friend for that time he made me laugh. After writing, say a short prayer of thanks to God for that person, and ask that any temporal debt they still have be forgiven. This transforms memory into active prayer. In the next 30 days, 1. Adopt a soul. Over the next 30 days, spiritually adopt a soul in purgatory. You can choose an ancestor you'd like to know more about, or simply ask God to assign you the soul that most needs help. During this month, offer all your small daily crosses for this specific soul: traffic, a work frustration, a headache.
Say a short ejaculatory prayer like, "Jesus, may this suffering relieve the soul of name or the soul you entrusted to me." This will train you not to waste any suffering. 2. The liberating rosary. Commit to praying the rosary at least once a week during this month, with the sole intention that the Blessed Virgin Mary descend into purgatory and liberate the souls, especially those who were devoted to her during their lives. As you meditate on each mystery, ask that the merits of Christ's life be applied to these souls. Imagine Mary, the star of the sea, guiding lost ships to the safe harbor of heaven with every Hail Mary you pray. 3. The transcendent act of forgiveness. Think of someone, living or dead, with whom you have an unresolved grievance or resentment. This month, make a conscious act of forgiving that person. Write a letter, which you don't need to send, expressing your forgiveness. Afterwards, pray for that person, asking God to bless them. Forgiveness unties spiritual knots within us and, according to the saints, has immense power to liberate souls who may be trapped in purgatory due to sins related to lack of forgiveness. It is an act that heals both the forgiver and the forgiven, here and in the afterlife. Death is not the end of the story. It is just the beginning of the final chapter, and the ink we use to write it is mercy. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations. Comment what you thought of this video and what city you are watching us from. Share with someone who needs to hear this message.